guys, it's the Market Sniper. Yes, glad to be back with you. You've demanded a part two. Many people reminding me, you owe us a part two. Tell us more about the emergency debate when Trump return really means. What Trump's return really means. Is the UK about to collapse? That was the question. And our three esteemed guests, along with Diary of a CEO, Steve Bartlett. And we did a part one and you enjoyed it. So here's where I'm at. One particular guest got a disproportionate degree of the airplay. And that means he's the dominant figure or was given the airtime. Now, that's either a function of the person who's chairing the meeting, or it's because he intrudes a lot and talks more than his time and is not being reined back in. Either way, Scott Galloway was that guy. And there's a couple of interesting things. He brought up references to Nazisms. He spoke on young males, how they are squandering their lives in their basements, still living at home at 30. The biggest casualties, I think young females have been pretty hard hit too, in terms of having interesting people in their change rooms and various other things. But in terms of applications, suicides, these are all young males. He speaks of this crisis, and actually I applaud him for that. And he speaks quite eloquently, and he's erudite and he's fast talking. He's the most capable facts to mind guy out of probably all of them, although, as I say, Daniel is quietly competent, but probably got the least of the airtime. Constantine has also had some good sound bites, but the whole framing has been very much inside a certain Overton window, and I think Scott was a big part of instituting that. Very quickly bringing out the Nazi bomb and some other things such as, these males are going into extremism, conspiracy theories, etc., etc. So he's projected the typical stigmatization that exists with anybody who's questioning the way of the world. And I thought, well, let's just have a look at his background. Now, far from Wikipedia being that bastion of truth, we all have a chuckle at that one. We know what goes on. I was still quite surprised by what actually came out of Wikipedia. So if we put his name in Wikipedia, what do we find? Born 64, public speaker. Now, no one is born a public speaker. You've got to have done something to get public speaking. I've done a couple of presentations on a stage to an audience, and typically it's something you're invited to. And in most instances, unless you're Hillary Clinton, you're not even necessarily paid for just being there. You've got to be interesting enough to start having people pay, maybe to get a meal or a value add. The notion that public speaker as career is, for a very special few, and I would argue also a very corruptive way of washing money. We'll remember how Hillary Clinton was paid absolute millions for public speaking to Goldman Sachs. Well, that's very generous of Goldman Sachs. How interesting was she? What does she know about economics and banking that Goldman and the others don't know? Or is it just money laundering? I'm reminded of the painting that was, kind of big, had the blue sky on the top half and the yellow fields, that is the Ukraine flag, on a big canvas. And it was sold for 66 million. Well, I looked at that flag and I think it was within even me to have done that canvas. And that was money laundering. That is a transfer payment. That is a tax write-off. That is all sorts of anything but art. And art is very captured and is very fake and fraudulent in many, many ways, which is not to say there haven't been beautifully artful things done. And I'm down on creativity. I'm not. I'm just saying it's weaponized and utilized very conveniently for financial skullduggery. Anyway, grew up in Los Angeles, California, Scottish immigrant to the United States. Mother, maternal line, from London, England. Was rejected after his first application to the University of California, Los Angeles, despite it having a 76% acceptance rate at the time. So he was the 24% that got thrown out. That's quite interesting. That means you weren't good enough, mate. That means you weren't good enough, generally. However, you got a second application, and the UCLA admissions director eventually accepted him despite poor grades. So again, it was the grades that were not matching. because Galloway was a native son of California. How sweet. So it sounds like strings were pulled, to me. There's a bit of a certain variety of privilege. I wonder if we've had any clues so far as to what that privilege would be. I don't know. You decide for yourself. Maybe there's a mystery box up to the right somewhere. Fascinating. Anyway, he got his deserved shot, even though he was garbage in his grades. He earned a Bachelor of Arts, so he really went out there for the big degrees. We're not talking actuarial science here. Graduating. Despite his grades, he was accepted in Berkeley Haas School of Business, graduating with an MBA. So he then got accepted for an MBA with a mighty arts degree. It's kind of interesting that, you guys come to your own conclusions. I'm just checking this stuff out. I don't know anything about his history. I'm seeing what Wiki says, and I'm having a little poke. That's all. Do I know? Listen, the way he talks, very erudite, very, very well trained and quick-witted, etc., etc. So, I don't think the last thing I'm going to say is he's stupid. But that early beginnings doesn't sound like that much, personally. Following his graduation, were fixed income analyst at Morgan Stanley. That's why he mentioned, we heard, the US 10-year. Okay, very interesting. That as a debt-based person, he didn't mention the USD performance on and during the 4 years of his chosen party, the Democrats. It's very interesting, I find. In actual fact, let's just take a look at that 10-year. He did mention the 10-year in there. It's really hard to play that video and do this video and then do a good edit that doesn't always cock up the sound. So do listen if you want. You can take it from me that he did, or you can go find it for yourself and watch through a couple of hours. But that was 2020, essentially the stolen election that was won. Just by the way, we're going to have to address this too, because one of the conspiracy theories he references is 9/11, the stolen election, and everything else. So Biden, the charming and very charismatic Biden, actually in swing states, specifically swing states, he underperformed in Democrat strongholds, but specifically in swing states, he outperformed Obama 1 when it was all hope and change and we were getting rid of that damn Bush with the 2 terms and the 9/11 and all that went with Bush Jr.'s 2 terms. And we were at peak hope and change. Everybody wanted to watch the inauguration, first black man as a president, We had the whole shooting match. Biden, as a candidate who was at the time the worst Democrat candidate in the primaries, Democrats, outperformed Obama. Hope and Change, which had this innovative social media strategy. Fancy that for a CIA agent, suddenly picking up on that and utilizing that for the first time and winning out and beating Mitt Romney. Yeah, so in 2020, the stolen election, because on balance of probabilities, I think it's fair to call BS on that. Do I know? No. Did we see lots of videos of boxes disappearing and things? Yes, on X. It's reasonable to question. Were they all fake? Maybe they could have been. But, I'm calling BS on that. But let's leave it, because I'm going to refer back to this aspect as well. So the stolen election 2020, of course, we had the big pumpermentals of all the money. And since then, 2020, this is what the Democrat did to interest rates a la inflation as a result of that print. Now, you can argue that all came during the CV19 era, which actually started in kind of 19-ish. So it's not perfect by party. And don't get me wrong, I'm not plumbing for Republicans here. We'll come back to all of this in a minute. But it's just super funny for a guy to put that forward. Because if you look at the TLT, or if I invert the chart, which is probably a lot easier, let's just do invert. This is what the valuations of those bonds did during that time. So they talk of the amazing economy, and last time I showed you that chart, the huge deficit spending. So this is like me saying, impress me with how well you live, to show me how well you're prospering. And then instead of spending your 100K, I give you 250K to spend. Of course you look better. Of course you're driving a better car. You're spending it like the Beckhams, and you're looking like King Dong. But in actual fact, everybody's just increased your overdraft for no reason. And now it's all being rolled over and coming true. So that is the performance of debt, which is the debt-based collapse that Drumpf, his real name, is now facing and having to deal with. So to say that the Democrats brought an incredible economy, there's quite a bit of this. Both Yellen Biden and certain Democrats, like this particular individual, are pushing that narrative, is delusional because the debt markets collapsed under you. That you actually ended the 60-40 portfolio scam because it should always have retained gold in it, and that gold should be increased in times of great debt-based proliferation on the basis that lack of scarcity no longer makes you valuable or scarce or unique, and that the yields will underperform the true inflation rate, and the capital values will underperform, and that's exactly what you're getting. The current payment is still too low for the true inflation of currency, especially when you take in these lockstep moments, which included the events of 2020. So this Wikipedia page is proving kind of interesting. So how's he functioning? What's his job? What's everything? He founded Profit, a consultancy with something to do with marketing. This isn't coding. This isn't technology. This is marketing, basically. In 97, he founded Red Envelope. So I'm assuming the first one didn't do so well. An e-commerce site specializing in unique personalized gifts. So he founded an online gift store. I mean, okay, not that we can all found an online gift store. Then this is the big one. Galloway founded, so all of those other foundings didn't seem to go anywhere. In 2010, he founded L2. And this is a subscription-based research and business intelligence firm. So this is like wanting to be a Gartner or a Forrester, etc., that benchmarks the digital competence of consumer brands. So we're going to do a benchmark on how the different brands that you buy, Nike shoes, Adidas t-shirts, whatever the case may be, their digital competence. The company evaluates more than 2,200 brands annually, analyzing their website, their e-commerce, and gives them a score. Now, that doesn't smack like mega buck salon business with super priority. Rely on those companies paying you a subscription to get your updated list of who's doing well on a website and who isn't, which was acquired in March by Gartner. Now, I know Gartner. We used to compete against them. I lived in a past life. Forrester, Gartner Research, etc. Data Monitor was acquired, I think, by, name forgives me, the UK equivalent. Look it up and put it in the comments below. But these are kind of report writing research, so you can get research on your industry by someone else who will supposedly be independent of your bias. Now, that's a heck of a lot of money for what struck me as a very small business. And I always get suspicious about people that get given Lux and setups, like kind of the George Soros that got the bottomless overdraft to short the hell, that's a much bigger version, out of the pound and be made billions, and then continues to give those money to particular causes. It smacks of, hey, go and do this. We're going to make you rich, but don't forget who gave you that money. You're going to make a bundle, but you need to fund these things as well. You're going to keep some of it. We're going to make you super rich, and you're going to be an outlaw. Remember, the chief Satan at the top can't be seen to directly fund everything. He needs independently skillful, wealthful people that are all part of a cult to suddenly get rich and show how talented that particular kind of people are and get bundles of cash, and for them to go about being really philanthropy. Philanthropy. Now there's a beautiful word. It touches my heart, the philanthropist, These are people, salt of the earth, giving back, Let's get this straight. Philanthropy, as it in most cases, are payments for crimes already committed or for ones yet to be committed, for insider information that have aggrandized you and pay back bribes and slush funds out of your ill-gotten gains. That is philanthropy. This altruism, my friends, in this guise of philanthropist. Hey, and just overnight I sold my little benchmarking tool for websites for 150 million. Well, Gartner were probably nudged a little to do that on account of establishing another localized hub that was working for the team. That's a conspiracy theorist's opinion. He hates conspiracy theorists. He said World Trade 7 clearly did not have at the third mark and the 2/3 mark, two clear kinks, fold into itself, severed pillars to make the building walk into its footprint and collapse at free fall speed. Anybody who questions that event and says it was pre-planned and an inside job is probably anti-Semite Nazi. And that's where you are. That's where you are with this guy. Anyone questioning COVID falls into the same category. Anybody, conspiracy theorists as a whole. So he's an enforcer of that framing. Anybody questioning that governmental cooperated with dark state and assassinated 3,000 plus of its own citizens in a high-rise development zone for all to watch as broadcast live drama TV. Think of the sickness of that, and that certain people had in a certain app that only Xbox people had, all got a notification not to present themselves in any way in that vicinity. They were probably told, don't, just leave your TV on and keep an eye. And it's quite amazing that. And this is proven. This is proven and it's accepted. So you've got a denialist of physics here. You've got a denialist of physics who's been made independently wealthy. So I kind of looked through a number of tweets. The World Trade 7 building with guys running around it after the two big towers had fallen. Largely, structurally, 100% intact. I watched minutes and minutes and minutes of it. Dust in the air, rubble on the floor, total concrete arms, all 100% right. And the guy saying, we're the last two people, I'm just checking there's no one else around, and da-da-da-da-da-da, and all of this. Structurally, 100% fine. Only for it later, for a gas fire, and I saw no evidence of fires on most floors, to lead to entire concrete folding in on itself beautifully. Now, for those of you that are familiar with the Timothy McVeigh incident, you can also have a look, and the full story never came out there. You can have a look at a van that blew up the side of a building. I think also inside the building there was rigged, and they still didn't get the building to fall. Let's get that straight. A van filled with explosives, and likely in truth further explosives that was put inside that building. You still see the shell like this and the kind of hollowed out middle in the front that's been blown out. Still standing. Still standing. But later on, with better technology, a little bit of nanothermite, listen, if you do destruction of buildings, it's a very unique business. You need to know explosives and you need to stay up to date and you get paid a bunch and you need engineers and you need everything. That's not something you knock up even in 6 weeks. Never. It will be probably 3.5 months minimum of planning, prepping, and then the actual physically setting. And this guy is a denialist of that physics. Go and watch, go schmoogle it. I'm not going to pull up everything for you. You know we're on this. We're not doing a 9/11 video here. But I'm shocked and heard, and here's the killer blow for me. So on Diary of a CEO, we have the dominant time being afforded to a fast-speaking practice speaker who sets the Overton window of how far you go to be a left-right discussion, pro-Democrat or Republican, denialist of all conspiracies where there's clear evidence of people conspiring against their own citizens, which points to a particular dark state from someone who is maternally of a certain Xbox, is kind of interesting to me. And then is in the 1999 class of World Economic Forum Global Leaders of Tomorrow. Now, 99 came before 2010. So having been determined to be worthy of that and deeply in the cult and sticking to the narrative of the cult, you get built up and made independently wealthy so that you can become a philanthropist to other things that will need cash flow. And this is the hub and spoke with many lower level hub and spokes. This is not George Soros big with multi-billions, etc. This is here, you've got 150 million and you can seed 6 million here and 5 million there. It's that level of money. He raised some money in an online education startup, Section 4. He raised 30 million. Okay. He surely has no problem selling a questionable business to quite a big player, and the now defunct firebrand partners. I've got to say, it's no surprise they defunct if they're part and parcel to paying 155 million for a consultancy that benchmarks websites and brands e-competence. I'm like, I'd love someone, would I sell my online education business with HVF method if someone showed up and offered me 150 million? I think I would, but I'm not getting those kind of offers. Maybe and I think there's far more value than a benchmark of someone's website. But that's me. I'm an ego. I must suffer from some form of ego. And I'm sure there's businesses that are of a similar ilk that would definitely bite the hand off for 150 million on there. Anyway, so this teaches brand management. This is soft subjects, guys. Brand management and digital marketing to second-year MBA students. So that's where he's ended up. That's what he does day to day. The one things I will support him on is that he supports, and this is, I think, a little bit of a misdirect and a moment of honesty that breaks out, antitrust on the mega cap tech. I'm all for that, as I was with the empathy for the teenage right the way through to 30-year-old male who's got totally no way. If you're not making alpha and building wealth as a male now, particularly white males, where you can't be hired near as well, you're not DEI compliant, you're not ESG, you aren't specifically in tech or STEM, you've got a heck of a thing learning how to hustle to build a job. But, it's not much better for females, but, that there's a slight thing. He also critiqued WeWork. So I must say positive things as well. Public offering. That is absolutely one chosen one critiquing another fraudulent chosen one. How publicly and how much airtime he got, this is possibly to build his cred. Antitrust on tech, WeWork. I don't know. So you think he's libertarian then? I don't know what to make of it. It's a little bit of a hodgepodge of everything. There's the antitrust intervention against the consumer likes. I think he should have got more. He then backed a Democrat candidate, Michael Bloomberg. And he was, as you heard, he called for the removal of Twitter Jackdaw while declaring to more than 300 shares, while declaring to own more than 300. So he was an investor in Twitter. And now he doesn't participate anymore because Elon is there and Elon's gone Republican. So this is the left-right framing. So he donates 100% of his New York University back to the university. He donated 4.4 million to Berkeley for immigrant student fellowships. Immigrant student fellowships. Interesting topic. Of course, we know who all the charities are that are doing the Latin America Panama run into the south of Mexico, all the way through Mexico into the south of the States. And an accelerator program. Now, it doesn't say specifically in the name if that's also immigrant, but it wouldn't mind. I would be surprised. He was going to be played in a series. Hold on. When asked Eisenberg. Yeah, Emperor Has No Moment. He was supposed to be in a CNN Plus, that program that also failed. You can check this out. It's in his link, Scott Galloway. That's the profile of the man, and that's where the views emanate from. They were entirely framed from that experience, and they dictated throughout this debate the left-right and where we strayed. So does the question about what Trump really means for the world get answered? No. He does say Trump weaponized and flew straight for males that are upset about, the trans movement, all the cultural Marxism, and he attributes him with being, astute for doing that. But that's just paying credit to right. So here, let's deal with the left versus right thing. Many people are sitting watching this and saying, but Elon and Trump have done such good things, Francis, and the Democrats were repulsive. Yes, they are repulsive. They are 100% repulsive. You're right on that point. And let's be actually clear how things work. Here is, let's say, your left, and they did the ultra-Marxist Weimar Berlin perversion thing. They put a clear-cut, inappropriate conduct president with children, with repeated clips that they allowed to be shared. They then showed his son, who was another deep in the drugs and also with underage kids and various other things, to make you hate them. They then stole an election quite clearly to anyone with logical thinking. He says no. He also says the World Trade 7 building would have fallen out of natural causes, a la the story that was provided, despite certain people saying we're going to pull it, and individual firemen saying, okay, move away, this one's coming down, which is super interesting for a matter of physics that should be determined by gravity and other things, rather than a timing device and explosives, which of course also included the BBC not realizing that on the day they hadn't yet got to pull that one down, there were clearly things that were structurally in the way, and announcing its destruction with the very building in the background. So we got a lot of, anyone with a normal mind would have a lot of questions around about that. But anyway, here we go. So, well, I've lost my political spectrum lines. I'm going to switch them around. I don't even know which one's blue and which one's red. I think red is the right. So here you have Trump. So what you do, essentially you are being bounced, and here's how the political system works. This is technological totalitarianism. Bolshevik, I'm going to go Bolsh, total, with an N. That's your technological Bolshevik totalitarianism, which is the end in mind. Start with the end in mind. This is where they're all taking you. This is where they've done the perversion, the making children vulnerable, the pedophilia. They've made this cultural Marxism very, very strong. And you were here 2020. Let's say 2020 was here. And this blue line can attract. It's like two magnets. They can attract or repel. So they crooked the last election. They were repulsive. They were stealing out of Ukraine. They let it all leak and be controlled. So when you do that, who the people going to vote for in the next election? If this is 2020, you get repulsed towards the other side. As I've said before, a collie dog and a prawn sandwich could have won against the Democrats. You either had an aging old man which didn't know which staircase to fall down every time he turned and had to be told, stand there and topple over here, versus a gal who'd kind of been passed around amongst a couple of the judges and the juries as GIRLF for quite a while, that had one bizarre saying she kept repeated and then guffawed like a braying donkey whenever there was something she didn't understand. That was who they put up after all that they did. So clearly, normies show up and participate in the mass psychosis and say, we're going to show those Democrats, and they go and they vote Republican. Let's not forget that hope and change happened in exactly the opposite direction when you had second-term George Bush with all this terrible luck and weapons of mass destruction and war destroying the East. It's the Middle East particularly I'm referring to here. And lies and corruption with the military-industrial complex, etc. These are very complicit with the pharmaceutical industrial complex, the Democrats. You got shunted for hope and change to Obama on this side. And you're being bounced like a ping pong ball from either side until you arrive at the end destination where they intend you to be. And that is right up here. So they have you think you won now. And in this particular clip, and I'm not going to play too much because it's kind of hard. I have to system audio and I make a cock-up of it. Constantine declares success. Freedom of speech won. And I'm like, one kind of freedom of speech has temporarily won for now, whilst another is taking place that is restricting you. He also signed laws making anti-Semitism illegal. This is Bolshevik revolution. So we need to talk about Bolshevik revolution. German families that moved into Russia and took up farms and farming to have a good living and escape draconian governments were part of the bourgeoisie that were absolutely slaughtered by largely from the Georgian area, Ashkenazis, descendants of Khazaria, the totalitarian Tartaria, Khazaria, with Turkic line as well through Zabbatai Zevi in 1666, where they captured that faith as well and that nation, which is also where the Armenian mass genocide took place, but that came later, worked their way into Christian Orthodox Russia and slaughtered the Romanov family, which included raping their half-dead children's bodies, dismemberment, thrown poison, poison being injected into them to ensure death, literally trying to destroy their very down to the molecule, threw them down mine shafts, panicked, redug them up, buried them somewhere else. I mean, you're talking about had the bodies removed in a wagon to try put in unmarked graves. I mean, you're talking about a dastardly plot for which there's the book written by the man who delivered the letter from Lenin himself, also Ashkenazi, that insisted on their absolute ritualized death, slaughter, and torture. I think only the emperor himself died on the shooting. So they were taken into a room and shot, and they were not all dead. Guns and efficiency and aim are just not those kind of things. You can take a while to die, even when you've been shot in the thorax. Anyway, that's what went on, and between 20 and 60 million people died. And many people think, well, it was only a starvation thing. No, they got the bourgeoisie and they murdered and slaughtered and tortured them. The Orthodox Christians, they destroyed the churches, the bells and everything. They had a torture called the glove, where they severed the skin and peeled it off the back of the hand and nailed it to the altar. Where is your God saving you now? Nuns had hot coals put up their orifices, their sexual organs and orifices. This is the vileness of this particular group of people. Stalin is a name changer. He's a name changer. It is Man of Steel. That was not his original name. I've been to his birthplace. It was a Georgian name, which means son of a mystery box. Okay? Bolshevism. That's Bolshevism, and it's a word you never hear. He will say Nazism 120 times before you get him to say Bolshevism, if you ever get him to say Bolshevism. That's a fact. It's not a phrase they like. It's a reminder of the true greatest world slaughter ever of white European Christian males. Right here, right now, you need to understand that. So that's kind of, and what did they do? After killing all the farmers and removing them and stealing their goods and lands and the bourgeoisie or anyone who was cultured in Russia. In fact, it became the way that you had to eat with hands and bowls like a primitive common person, a low culture person. Anyone who was eating with cutlery or was dignified in any way or looked educated, you were going to get slaughtered. If you laughed, you were going to get slaughtered. That meant you meant something. It had to be misery and poverty. You had to accept serfdom and become a serf. They obliterated even, can you believe this? This can be searched, and the name of the dog passes me. Put it in the comments below if you know, and share the tweet link. I've seen it, I've read it, and I can't recall. Very similar to an Afghan, but very popular in Russia, that the middle classes had. Tall and slender, beautiful animal. They slaughtered the dog line, that you couldn't find them anymore, that were popular pets. That's like going to every French bulldog or brown Labrador and destroying the dogs for what they symbolized as being the favorite pet of a middle class of academia and entrepreneurship. That's what went down in Russia that you never heard. And by the way, the bankers of London and America funded these guys. And I've been to the Tbilisi bank where they attempted to do a robbery. Done a whole video on that before, to get funds for their revolution. That's their revolution. And largely, the American soldiers were put outside Moscow, not in Moscow, because they had a small dominance of people in Moscow, because they feared the popularity of the Tsar would bring more white Russians from the outlying areas. It's a massive landmass, don't need to explain to you, right the way through to Vladivostok. People were coming in support and against this communism. Who brings communism every time? Who were the advisors in China? Who did everything? And why is it always associated with a ritualized slaughter? And killing the production of food. What have you heard today around production of food is happening? What do you think is happening through corporatocracy and structure? Underlying eggs, chicken, beef. What's happening to your beef apart from vaccinations and many other things? Who is doing this to your food line? Who is making it illegal as it was? This is a repeat playbook for the West of what happened in the USSR, in making the USSR when it was previously Russia. So you are getting walked from left to right. You think victory, hope and change, all of this. What are you getting? You're getting tweets from Tony Blair now saying the world is now ready. We can't stop crime. It's time for the biometric ID. We used to be able to stop crime before you disempowered police, brought every criminal from every third world country into our Western nations. Now it's a reason for everybody must be biometrically ID'd. Did any of this get discussed in this debate? No, it didn't, because the chief framing in the top left and the guys that were talking about it kept it as a cool, chatty, inside the Overton window that you're allowed to play in, mid-tier pyramid, where this is a top-down system. And the only way you win is organizing at the bottom level, because they haven't penetrated right into your family, although they're doing plenty programming, and many families got split up on the events of CV19, etc., etc., etc. Many people don't see. So you're going to get bounced from pillar to post. Bad politician, oh, go for the other. The binary system. Let's be clear on how they operate. They plan the pivot they intend to give you relief in one area and give you new, fresh, dumb hope for an advancement back. And you are bounced between these two forces into your technological Bolshevik totalitarianism on a left, right, march yourself to your own real gas chamber and digital prison. And that right here is not being spoken about, and it's coming for the West. The UK is in huge trouble, and so is America. It's coming for all of the West. Canada, Australia, New Zealand, yes, you too. The Western nations are going to get it harder and worse. They are at the forefront of the financial services industry and the technological industry. By the way, I'm going to come back to China with DeepSeek and Quen 2.5 in a minute when I show you some tweets apart from this video. So that's where you're going. They plan, the dark state plans their pivot and who their actor will be and who they want to get into power. You permissioned them by voting Trump. You participated in a mass psychosis exercise that gave them permission to continue with their agenda by going out and voting Trump. And you say, but the alternative was so terrible. And I say, you're going to keep getting alternatives, and you're going to get a terrible one and a less bad one. And you're going to keep marching yourself into technological Bolshevik totalitarianism. And it's time you realize that you masterfully getting your ex to fit into that box. What a piece of work you did there. It's magical. You have to be skilled. You walked for 5 minutes down to your local primary school, and you did that. Now that, having done all that, that assures you for 4 solid years, that guy's going to non-stop work to thank you for that masterful piece of effort you put in there. He's not going to be working for the guy that gave him 10 million and funded him and put him in power, that happens to have a blackmail tape on him a la Epstein having his winky in some 5-year-old. No. He's never going to do it. You secured the future. This is on you. You participated in a delusion, a mass psychosis delusion, and like I always say, they will give you things and say, this is poison. If I pick it up and drink, it's on me. As long as they can continue to get a minimum participation rate in the electoral process, you are permissioning them to continue their journey. They actually do have a code. They do have a code. They get to tell you how they're going to do you. They get to tell you. And Satan means, as I discuss often, opposition. It means your adversary. To them, you are opposition and you are fair game to be taken down. However, they have a code. It's on you karmically if they tell you and you drink it anyway. And if you've come to the conclusion that you're going to stop their left-right march to totalitarianism by a ballot box, you are in fool's dilemma. You are part of the mass psychosis. Hey, we've all voted. I voted. I voted before. I don't vote anymore, but I voted before. Oh yeah. And I thought, well, I did my bit. I did a masterful little cross. It was beautiful. It just was worthy of a manservant for 4 years. It was absolutely worthy, working on my behalf. All the causes I cared about. Yeah. Anyway, so there's your real world dilemma. Too many people keep permissioning them in this process. If you could get disengagement, and they will give you a fake assassination, they will throw up theater and planning and absolute hysteria and create loathsome avatars with more attractive no BS type guys to keep you ping pong balling, bouncing between the bat and table, and the only one who ends up with a headache is you. That's your game. This isn't your system. You have no power over that. And that's why I will do the black pill tonic reading, what you can do. I'm not here to make you feel depressed and powerless. I'm here to tell you, if it's somebody else's car, doesn't matter how many times you help put air in the tire, the guy driving off in it is not you. Okay? It should be understood. What is understood need not be discussed. You listen to this guy, and it's all Democrat versus Republican. And you listen to some of the other guys, and they're going to, truth one. Let's just hear this.
Decision to buy X is a net positive for society.
Net, yes. But I think what people hear when you say that is there's no problems with this system than, compared to the ones we had before. There are definitely disadvantages to a free platform like X now. And one of them is, inevitably, when you remove censorship, one of the things the censorship was doing was keeping all the deeply unpleasant people away from being able to shove things in your face. And that happens quite a lot.
Who determines who's deeply unpleasant? And is censorship really taking the unpleasant people? I find all the sleeper normies deeply unpleasant to me. But I recognize their right to exist and go Elon, go Trump, or go Biden, or the Democrats won the economy. There's idiocy all around me as far as I'm concerned. I consider it deeply unpleasant. Someone who just comes up and says, F you, and you're an idiot, and use this, that's trolling. People don't pay them attention. They don't get gravitas. That's literal teenage dim warrior. You're supposed to be advocating for free speech, and you're actually larging it on all of this. And this is, I think, anyone who's on the right that has to do Nazi defense. It's almost like not being slut shamed for a woman who's on a second marriage. It's like, is that really necessary? Is that really goddamn necessary that you have to go at such length? Who's being hassled when it's non-censored? Who? I'm not being hassled. You know what's the problem? Spam and bots. I'll give that. On my YouTube comments, I would want edit comments, and I would go all the bot ones that are shilling a token, and I can just click them all like that and go delete all and block. I can't do that. YouTube should do that for me. I aim to keep my comments clean. And the scammers, oh, I've lost my wallet. Can you help me to do this thing? Thank you. Bugger off. This token. The first 20 comments I've had on videos, block presented, and I have to go 4 or 5 clicks each one to remove them. Why don't you make it easy? They want that. They want that stuff. Otherwise, you'd make it easier for me to manage YouTube. But that's not what's going on, and that's not what he's talking about.
On it, so I don't enjoy that aspect of it, but I've always said that would be the price that we would pay for freedom. Freedom always has a price, and that's what we're seeing. As for Zuckerberg, his miraculous transformation into a free speech warrior is just wonderful, and I'm delighted to welcome him. I'm sure it's entirely genuine and not anything to do with the election results we've just seen in any way whatsoever, and the fact that the culture shifted. And those of us who were being censored by people like him for years actually winning the argument. Well, what it shows you is we've won the argument on free speech.
You haven't. You haven't. You've seen a tactical pivot between a blue bar and a red bar. And for the moment, you'll be giving the hope and change vibes. How free speech is it to have a biometric ID introduced during the next 4 years? the normalization of crypto, the integration of it with a banking cartel when it was supposed to be your own central bank and totally private. How free is it that one of the stable coins ends up becoming a CBDC? How free of speech? You're declaring victory. This is mission accomplished. This is George W. Bush on the thing. I mean, it is so foolhardy to go that far. So you've had a pivot away from, you get pulled very extreme in one direction by the cultural Marxists of the left, the inversion, perversion, everything that is absolutely repulsive, but it is a beginning of a normalization process, and you are going to see it again, a la Weimar Berlin, where you bought the mother and the daughter, you know, for sexual deviancy and everything else, and pedophilia and the first operations, trance, etc., etc. Oh, you're getting everything of that era brought to you in the West. And so, because it's not being pushed and you're having a bounce back now, you think you're not going to get some other part of the leg in this journey. It's left foot, right foot. It's wings of the same bird. I mean, it's disappointing level. And actually, I'm not going to insult your audience level to continue more with us. I'm going to introduce to you something that I think gives you value. Because inside this discussion, the UK is going to collapse, and so is America. By the way, America lives on almost double its means, so that deficit spending is eventually only the Fed will be buying it. It's going to get hyper-monetized, and they'll have to print money to buy it. So you're going to have an inflation runaway. You're going to have an interest rate spike. That's going to lead, only in America's case, that the currency goes up. In all the other currencies where the debt collapses, the currency will go down. As per Britain, microcosm on the pension event, where the pension didn't have the means to pay pension, tried to sell some of the bonds, and don't crash the market, don't do that. You think those debt markets are so liquid. It's priced at the margin on thin value. They're issuing so much, the bid can't take a big pension fund dumping a huge amount to get money to do it. Guess what they do? Borrow against this asset. We maintain it at this hyperinflated asset at the same time as we're suppressing gold. This is beautiful DeMartini, actually. We have lots of details how you suppress in one place and you elevate in another. There's a natural law of nature. The depression of valuation of gold and silver is the hypervaluation, allegedly, of debt at its current levels. Debt needs to go immensely lower down, and at the same process, you will see the revaluing of true scarcity, gold and silver. Gold and silver is noble. You can buy through pure gold on the link below, and in the US through ITM trading. And many other good providers do exist. Those are the ones I've chosen to select to put to you. If you want to support the channel, it would be great. They are good people. I have interacted with them suddenly, but there will be others. Okay, that's what you can do to defend yourself. That's the big correction that's coming. And we are in a debt-based collapse, and those two nations are too hopelessly over-indebted, and they're part of the Western axis that will be falling and getting the Bolshevik experience. Hence why you're seeing farms being bought up, you're seeing the same laws being brought in by Stalin, who was allegedly not Xbox, mystery, but actually was, and everybody else and everything else that went down in there, which is the removal of dangerous people, divergent, which puts you on a list, probably puts me on a list. It's a risky business doing this. There's consequences of what I say is coming true. Anyway, so I think I would rather show you a couple of things more interesting.
Tired of profit wipeouts and blown accounts from following trade signal groups and other YouTube channels? Looking for a better way to trade, reduce your stress, and minimize your risk? Become a skilled technical analyst and see the charts and markets in a new light using the successfully proven HVF method by Francis Hunt, while being surrounded and supported by a principled, structured, and experienced community. Enjoy a constructive learning environment while practically trading markets, supported by a bespoke platform run through browser and app, specifically designed to teach and engage you whilst learning and growing as the markets move. This is not a Telegram or Slack signal group. All trade ideas are based on a proprietary technical analysis process honed over decades, which is the HVF method, leading to trade ideas with fast-moving breakouts and tight stops, exact entries and exits, nuanced interim considerations, and ultimately, strong rewards. Submissions are graded and scored by Francis for potential high-quality setups, and we provide bespoke tools to help get the job done properly and with precision. Over time and with focused effort, you'll begin to look at charts and price action just like Francis. Community updates every day by Francis and our 3 webinars a week provide a 360-degree approach, which are presented by our experienced team of trade leaders to spot potential trades. We're a community of self-actualized individuals, spanning the globe and active 24/7, 365. The premium community provides a warm, supportive, and cooperative place for people willing to listen, participate, contribute, and to learn. We've changed thousands of traders' lives. Transform your approach to trading now. Transform your life. Book an introductory call with us on the link below.